My brother, who had been abducted for 18 years, finally returned home. I told my boyfriend right away. Unexpectedly, his face changed drastically after hearing it. Your brother comes back at this time. He must be going to compete with you for the family property. I shook my head. Although my brother was abducted and sold, he was smart and capable, and had already been worth over 100 million. He also said that he would give me a large villa as my wedding gift. But before I could open my mouth, my boyfriend quickly said again, since ancient times, property should be left to sons. So let's get the marriage license first. And you transfer all the money to my name. In this way, we won't be afraid of being coveted by outsiders. Listening to his words, I decisively informed the hotel to cancel the wedding arrangements. After all, I know who my family is. I also know who is coveting my money. My brother was abducted by human traffickers in order to protect me. That year I was 5 years old and he was 8. The nanny took us to play in the community downstairs. She dozed off halfway and fell asleep soundly on the bench. The human traffickers targeted me, covered my mouth, and forced me into the car. My brother shouted for help while punching and kicking the human traffickers. The human traffickers were afraid of making too much noise, so they threw me aside, took out a stick and knocked my brother unconscious, then dragged him into the car and left in a hurry. By the time someone noticed, the car had long disappeared. My brother had been missing for exactly 18 years. But my parents and I never gave up looking for him. Fortunately, we finally found him now. Looking at the man in front of me, who looked 5/10 similar to me, or perhaps because of the bond in our blood, when I saw him, I couldn't help but want to get closer and give him a hug. Brother? I recited this title in my heart every day. But at the moment when I actually said it out, bitterness hit my heart, and I couldn't help but shed tears. Sean was a little calmer than me. He opened his arms and hugged me generously, saying, "The little crybaby has grown up, and is a beautiful young lady now." Listening to his words, my parents hugged each other and cried bitterly beside us, saying sorry over and over again. In those years, they were too busy with work and often left my brother and me in the care of the nanny. At first, the nanny was quite conscientious. Later, seeing that my parents often didn't come home, she became more and more perfunctory, which led to the final tragedy. But in any case, a joy of regaining what was lost was fully expressed at this moment. After meeting at the police station, Sean went home with my parents and me. "Brother, Mom has cleaned your room every day, just waiting for you to come back." I followed behind Sean, still unable to restrain my excitement. Over the years, no matter how well my parents' business was, they didn't choose to move to a better house. They were afraid that one day, if my brother found his way home by himself, but there were no family members here, he would be sad. His room was exactly the same as it was 18 years ago. The cartoon patterns were a little childish, but every place was extremely clean, waiting for its owner to return. Sean couldn't help but have his eyes turn red. He sat on the bed, and my parents hugged him, one on the left and one on the right. Just like when I was a child, I sat in front of him on a small stool, looking up at him. At first, the human traffickers saw that I was a boy and wanted to sell me at a high price. I took the opportunity to sneak out halfway, but I hit my head on a stone. When I woke up, I found myself in a welfare home, but I couldn't remember anything. It was not until recently that I had another car accident and remembered where my home was. When he said this, a bitter smile appeared on Sean's lips. Mom couldn't hold it and immediately and hugged him and cried again, saying that she would never be separated from him again. Dad was very happy. He tied his apron and said that he would cook by himself to celebrate. At the dinner table, my brother talked about his experiences over the years. "I'm lucky. I started a company with my college roommate and made a lot of money." When he said this, my brother paused for a moment. He turned to look at me. "Promise. I heard that you were about to get married?" I nodded and hugged his arm. sticking to him as I did when I was a child. He doesn't know that you are back yet. If he knew that I had found my brother, he would surely be happy for me. In a couple of days, I'll arrange for you to meet. Okay? My love must have my brother's blessing. Otherwise it is not perfect. Sean nodded and reached out to rub my head again. As your brother, I also have to contribute to your dowry. Coincidentally, I have a villa under my name. The location is very good. How about giving it to you as a wedding gift? My brother was very rich, even richer than my parents. So I didn't hesitate at all. I thanked him heartily and continued to listen to his experiences over the years. This day should be the happiest day in my life. So when I returned to my room at night, when I saw the message sent by my boyfriend's Zachary, I quickly called him and said that I had a very happy thing to tell him tomorrow. I thought he would also be happy for me. Unexpectedly, when Zachary learned that my brother had been found, his face changed on the spot. What? Your brother has been found? Zachary stood up suddenly, knocking over the coffee on the table and soiling the white shirt on him. I quickly took two tissues and handed them to him, but he didn't take them, knowing that you would be surprised. I didn't expect that you were even more excited than me. At that time, I thought he was happy because I had found my brother. Listening to my teasing words, Zachary immediately held my hand and said seriously, "Have you done a paternity test? Could there be a mistake?" I shook my head. "We've done a paternity test. He is my brother. There can't be any mistake." Zachary didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he held it even tighter. He said, "He didn't come back earlier or later. Why did he have to be found just when we were about to get married?" This statement made me feel very uncomfortable. So I pulled my hand away, and my tone became much calmer. "Zachary, what do you mean by that? My parents and I have been looking for my brother for so many years. My greatest wish is that he can give me away at my wedding. Why do you look so disappointed?" Maybe seeing that I was angry, Zachary quickly shook his head. He sat directly beside me, as if trying hard to suppress the anger in his heart, and then said gently, "If your brother hadn't been found, you would be an only daughter. So what?" He continued, "So if your brother comes back, all of your family's property will be his." Hearing his words, I was stunned for a moment. My brother and I are both my parents' children. It's fair to split the property in half. What's the problem, even if more was given to my brother? So what? Over the years, I have grown up happily under my parents' love. But my brother has struggled to survive in the orphanage. Moreover, he was abducted in order to save me back then. All in all, I owe him my life. Zachary shook his head, looking very worried. He said with a bit of exasperation, "You're so silly. He comes back at this time, surely to compete with you for the family property. Use your head and think. Your brother has been abducted and sold for so many years. His life must have been tough. Now that he has suddenly been found and brought back home, facing such a large amount of property, how could he not be tempted? He has come back this time to compete with you for the property. Originally, the property that belonged to us will all be given to him then. You don't have any emotional bond with him. How much dowry can he give you?" I shook my head, wanting to refute. My brother has been working hard outside all these years. His company is even bigger than that of my parents, and his net worth has already exceeded 10 billion. Moreover, at dinner last night, apart from saying that he would give me that villa as a dowry, my brother also gave me a black card with no spending limit, saying that I could use it as I liked. But before I could speak, Zachary's eyes suddenly brightened for a moment. He looked at me and said, "Since ancient times, property has been left to sons. This is an unchanging truth. Before, you were an only daughter, and the property would surely be given to us. But now that your brother is back, the property will surely all be given to him. So let's get the marriage license first, while he hasn't yet established himself firmly in the Zhu family." You transfer all the property and shares to my name first. I'll keep an eye on it for you, so we don't need to be afraid of outsiders coveting it. You are a girl. In the future, you can just be a rich lady at home. I'll manage the company for you and ensure that your brother doesn't get a single penny. How about that? Hearing his words, my heart grew colder inch by inch. Maybe it was a bit unbelievable. This boyfriend, who had been with me for almost 5 years, with whom I had fallen in love during college, and who had been obedient to me in every way. So that 1 year after graduation, we planned to get married. But I didn't expect that he would say such things today. I forcibly suppressed the disappointment in my heart and asked him again. He is my brother. There's nothing wrong with splitting the property in half. Do you think there's anything wrong? Zachary seemed not to notice the increasingly ugly expression on my face, but was immersed in his own world. Holding my hand, he tilted his head slightly upwards and began to daydream. You are a daughter and can't compete with a son for family property. So as long as we get the marriage certificate, I will be considered half a son to your parents. Then you transfer all the property and company shares to me. How can this family property that belongs to us be given to others? Ours? Even if we take a step back. That's my money. When did it become ours? So I directly shook off his hand and said coldly, give up this idea. My brother is not as bad as you said, and the family property was earned by my parents through hard work. No matter who they give it to. I have no objections. Hearing my words, Zachary was also very angry. He directly stood up and pointed at my nose. Promise. Are you stupid? If it weren't for your brother, all that property would be yours. In the future, it could be used in our small family. Let my parents, uncles, and aunts come and help you manage the company together. It's better than having your brother inherit everything and you become penniless and then marry into our family. If by this point I still didn't understand his hidden meaning, I would really be stupid. My brother, the person who shares my blood, is an outsider? He, who hasn't even got the marriage certificate with me yet. Including all his relatives and friends. Our family? I was so angry at this realization that I laughed. So I also stood up and splashed the other untouched cup of coffee on the table directly onto his face. Zachary, how come I didn't realize you were this kind of person before? Since you're worried that I'll become a pauper, then why get married? Let's break up. After saying that, I walked straight out. I thought that the 5-year relationship had been wasted. But I didn't expect Zachary's whole family didn't plan to let me go. My brother was found, and my parents wanted to take him back to our hometown, saying that they wanted to inform the ancestors. And because I had opened an art studio myself, I was very busy with work recently. So I didn't go with them. Therefore, and news of my breakup with Zachary hadn't been told to them immediately. That night, I found that my window had been smashed. Glass shards were scattered all over the floor. When I just came out of the bathroom, I almost got hit by the glass. Looking at the stones on the ground, I carefully walked around to the balcony and immediately saw Zachary standing in my yard. When he saw me appear, he quickly waved at me. Promise. Your parents are not at home these days. It's a great opportunity for us to get the marriage license. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. It turns out that when I said we should break up this afternoon, he didn't take it seriously at all. He even sneaked to my house in the middle of the night, trying to coax me into getting the marriage certificate. So I immediately put on a cold face and stood on the balcony, looking down at him. For the sake of our 5-year relationship, I'll leave you with the last bit of dignity. If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police. Breaking into the community late at night, climbing into my yard, and smashing my window with a stone. This is the person I was blindly in love with before. As soon as I said this, Zachary's face also turned ugly, as if he was a little unconvinced. But he still held back his temper and said, Promise. I'm clearly doing it for your own good. Don't be brainwashed by your brother. He just wants to compete with you for the family property. Only I am truly for your good. I didn't say anything more and directly took out my phone. Seeing this, although he was unwilling, he still ran out without looking back. While running, he also said, "Promise. You are just too naive. That's why you are deceived by others. But it doesn't matter. I will definitely protect you and our property." Bah? When did my family's property become his? Maybe a little angry. I found the property management's phone number on my phone, told them about Zachary, and asked them never to let him in again. But Zachary still hadn't given up. The next day, on my way to the studio, I saw Zachary's mother from a distance. To be honest, she used to be very kind to me. I don't know if her kindness, like her son's, was calculated. So when we met, I didn't show too many emotions and planned to wait and see what would happen. "Mrs. Kin directly held my hand. She said affectionately, "Promise. Auntie has always regarded you as my daughter-in-law. I know you and Zhao Chuan have had a quarrel recently. But which young couple doesn't quarrel? He is just too worried about you. He's afraid that your brother will take everything from you. So he thought of getting the marriage certificate first. After all, Zhao Chuan and I are truly for your good. All right." She also came to coax me. "My parents are very kind to me. And my brother is also very kind to me. As for my family's property, I don't care whether my brother has more or less than me." After I calmly said this, Mrs. Kin, who had been looking affectionate just now, already showed a dissatisfied look. "Don't be silly. Promise. Your parents are not good people. They had to pick up a son and bring him home. In the future, you won't get any share of the property. It's better to get the marriage certificate with my son Zhao Chuan first. In the future, I'll let Zhao Chuan's brothers, uncles, and granduncles help you manage the company together. How about that?" If 1 minute ago, I still didn't know how to face Mrs. Kin, who had been very kind to me before, then from the moment she said these words, I knew that Mrs. Kin was essentially no different from her son. They keep saying that they are doing it for my good. They are trying to coax me into getting the marriage certificate with Zachary in a roundabout way, so that they can justifiably get involved in my family's business. Simply put, they want to take over my family's property when there is no heir in my family. But they didn't expect that my own brother has come back home. The plan has failed. So now they are making such a scene. Looking at Mrs. Kin in front of me, her eagerness in her eyes was hard to hide. But since I knew what she was planning, I didn't want to continue acting with her. So I directly shook off her hand. "Thackeray and I have already broken up. There is no possibility of getting back together. And we will definitely not get the marriage certificate." Hearing my words, Mrs. Kin's face already looked a little ugly. She forced a smile. "You have been with Zhao Chuan for so many years. Now you break up just like that. You are no different from a divorced woman. If you break up, you are a loose woman. Do you think anyone else will want you?" Well, the remaining politeness completely disappeared at this moment. So I smiled and replied, "You haven't been with anyone else all these years. Why don't you go to the blind date market? According to what you said, you should be very popular." Mrs. Kin got divorced many years ago and has never found another partner. She has always thought that everything will be fine when her son grows up. I know it's not good to attack others' sore spots. But the premise of being polite is that the other person has to act like a human being first. "Promise." Mrs. Kin seemed to be angered by me. She called my name, and all the gentleness and kindness on her face disappeared. Looking at the passers-by, she increased her volume without any scruples. "Promise. You have been with my son for 5 years. And my son likes you so much. Now you break up just like that. Do you have a conscience? Are you keeping a gigolo outside? Although we come from a pure family, we still can't tolerate being insulted. A girl like you, who has never suffered hardships, is playing with others' feelings. Be careful of being cursed by heaven. Since we have already torn our faces apart, I don't have any scruples either. I'm not afraid of those strange looks either. Amid the whispers of the crowd, I just replied, I have a clear conscience. But who is calculating whom and who wants to take over whose family property? That person knows it very well. To use your words, be careful of being cursed by heaven. At this point, I have completely fallen out with the Kin family. For, finally, I had 3 peaceful days. I thought Zachary had given up. But I didn't expect that he would go directly to my studio, set up a seemingly warm and romantic proposal ceremony there, and in the midst of everyone's cheering, handed a large bouquet of roses to me. Promise. I know you have been in a bad mood these days. You can hit me or scold me if you want. We have been together for so many years and have experienced a lot of things. For you, I came to this city to develop. Also for you, I worked hard to save money to buy a house. Still for you, I work hard every day. Just hoping that one day I can marry you. Promise. No matter what happened between us before. But we have such a long-term relationship. How can we just let it go like this? Give me one more chance. I will definitely be good to you and give you complete love. Okay? While talking, he tried to put the ring on my finger. I immediately slapped him in the face. The jeering of the crowd suddenly stopped. Looking at each other in astonishment, I coldly stared at Zachary in front of me. You're right. After all, we have had so many years of relationship. So I didn't want to make the situation too ugly. It would be fine to break up quietly. In the future, when we meet, we can just act like strangers. And we can still leave some leeway for each other. But what have you done? You broke my window in the middle of the night, hoping that I would steal my ID card to get married to you, and then transfer all my family's property to your name. Do you really think I'm a fool? I took a deep breath, then took the bouquet of roses in his arms and threw it directly at him. Finally, you stay in this city for development because this place is the most helpful for your career. Even without me, you will work hard to save money to buy a house and work hard every day. Don't say that everything is for me. Isn't it disgusting? After all, we liked each other for so many years. Do we have to make the situation so ugly and show the ugliest side of our hearts? Listening to my words, Zachary's face gradually became ugly as well. He slowly stood up, looking at the roses scattered all over the floor, still a little unwilling to give up. Promise. I'm doing it for your own good. Why don't you listen? Is it really for my good? Or is it to rightfully take over my family's property when there's no heir? I directly laid out the truth. Zachary also couldn't keep his face, and immediately refuted without thinking. When did I ever covet your property? You're simple-minded. I'm just worried that you will be deceived and want to protect you. Those uncles and cousins in my family, although not highly educated, are at least on my side, and can help you manage the company together with me. We are clearly all doing it for your own good. Talking nonsense with eyes wide open. For the first time, I had a deep understanding of this term. So without thinking, I picked up my mobile phone and clicked on the recording. Then say these words again. And then I'll post this video on the internet. Let netizens see whether it's me who is ungrateful or you who have ulterior motives. How about it? Listening to my words, and looking at my mobile phone that had already started recording, he quickly stepped back to steps, and then showed a look of pity, as if I had done something wrong to him. While walking out, he said, Promise. You're so cruel. So cruel. To this, I just wanted to say 2 words to him, idiot. 5 I know Zachary hasn't given up yet. But these days I haven't gone to the studio. Most of the time, I just stay at home. He can't find any chance to meet me. And he will only send me messages every day, trying to brainwash me. Every time I see those messages, I immediately block and delete them. Then new numbers send messages again. And it goes on and on. And my parents and brother finally came back from our hometown. My brother also brought me a lot of gifts. As soon as he came back, he mysteriously came up to me and told me to go to his company tomorrow. saying that he would give me a surprise. I asked him what it was, but he wouldn't say. That night, another strange number sent me a text message. This time, there were no brainwashing words. He said, "Promise. Actually, I know you have always looked down on me a little. But I tell you, with my own efforts, I have been successfully promoted today. The leaders are very optimistic about me and said that maybe I can be promoted again soon. This company is among the top 100 in the world. More powerful than your family's company. I don't even bother to covet your family property. You know? So, this time he sent me a message to show off his promotion. I blocked this number again, and then went straight to bed. After all, I still have to go to my brother's company tomorrow, but I really didn't expect Zachary is actually an employee in my brother's company. From the moment I saw him, I suddenly realized the surprise my brother mentioned. I haven't told my family that I broke up with Zachary yet. So when my brother found out that Zachary worked in his company, he used his power to directly give him a promotion and a raise. Just to make me happier. Seeing me coming, Zachary pushed away those colleagues who were surrounding him to congratulate him, with a little show off in his eyes. Do you know that I've been promoted and come to find me to get back together? What the hell? I was shocked by his unfathomable self-confidence. So for a while I didn't say anything. Zachary's eyes showed more pride. He deliberately turned his head to look at the employees who were watching and then said in a loud voice, "Although you always like to throw little tantrums, and whenever you're a little unhappy, you use breaking up to threaten me. But I'm magnanimous and don't remember the faults of a petty person. Since you come to apologize sincerely, I'll reluctantly forgive you. But in the future you must listen to me. Stop." I made a cross sign at him and gave him a white eye. Then I said to him, "You're overthinking. I'm here today to find Sean." Sean is the name my brother gave himself in the welfare home after he lost his memory. Because my brother has just been found, many procedures haven't been fully completed yet. And even the household registration is still being processed. So Zachary only knows that my brother is called Sean. It doesn't know that they are actually the same person. Hearing my words, Zachary hadn't said anything yet. Suddenly a little girl emerged from the crowd and walked directly in front of me. She looked me up and down, with a little contempt in her eyes. "You want to see our general manager, Gu?" I nodded. "Yes. I made an appointment with him too." "Do you think our general manager Gu is someone you can see whenever you want?" The little girl directly interrupted my words. Her eyes became more and more dissatisfied. And she even started preaching directly. "Girls like you, who are gold diggers, just know how to cling to men, knowing that our general manager Gu is handsome and rich. So you're eager to see him. Don't you think for yourself whether general manager Gu can look up to someone like you? Funny. How can a sister coming to see her own brother be regarded as a gold digger?" So I politely replied to her, "I don't know what kind of person your general manager Gu would fall for. But surely not someone as acrimonious as you. We are all old foxes. Why play such tricks here?" With that's our tone. I could tell she had feelings for my brother even with my eyes closed. But most likely it was just unrequited love. My brother didn't like her. So when I exposed her thoughts in front of everyone, the girl blushed immediately, and then shouted at me with her neck stretched out. "Do I need you to tell me what kind of person I am? I've seen a lot of gold diggers like you. You just rely on your good looks and glib tongue. But in fact you've been played around with long ago." After that, she turned her head and glanced at Zachary. "Is this your ex-girlfriend? Last time you told us that she broke up with you for no reason. Look. She came to the company today and said she wanted to see General Manager Gu. Most likely she wants to dump you and find a rich man. And you're still stupidly agreeing to get back together with her. Aren't you afraid of being cuckolded?" Zachary clearly knew what kind of person I was. But when he heard such words, he still showed a dissatisfied look. As if I had really done something wrong to him. "Gia. Stop it." Zachary walked 2 steps towards me. "And you. Promise. Our general manager Gu is not someone you can meet just because you want to. Although I know that actually you came here today to see me. And finding General Manager Gu must be just an excuse. Others may not understand. But I do understand your sister. I was too lazy to pay attention to them, and directly took out my mobile phone to call my brother. But the phone was turned off. Only then did I find that my brother had sent me a message. The message read, "Promise. Something happened suddenly in the overseas branch. I have to rush there immediately to deal with it. I'm estimated to be back in a few days. I'll bring you a present then." But Gia didn't know that. All she knew was that the call didn't get through. So she laughed more happily. Being a gold digger and still wanting to save face in front of me. But ended up being slapped in the face. Right? Do you think everyone has General Manager Gu's phone number? Not to mention whether it's the real number or not. Even if it is, judging from your situation, you must have been blocked. Hurry up and leave. The floor was mopped very clean by the cleaner this morning. It can't be dirtied by you. I looked at Gia and really wanted to ask my brother which mental hospital he recruited this employee from. 6 When I left, Zachary directly chased me out of the company. He stood in front of me and deliberately showed his work badge with his position on it. Showing off on purpose. Promise. You should know that I'm a potential stock. I got promoted at a young age and have greater potential in the future. I can earn more money. Maybe more than your parents and you combined. So what? I only asked this one question. I looked calm and didn't show the slightest joy or admiration because of his promotion and salary increase. Instead, there was a little bit of mockery. He seemed to be provoked by me. Or maybe because there were no onlookers around. He didn't bother to keep pretending. He said, "So don't bully the poor young man. Maybe you will have to beg me in the future." Huh. What a beautiful dream. I ignored him and turned around to leave directly. Zachary tried to rush over to stop me again. But before he could continue to pester me, his immediate superior Mike suddenly appeared and came over with a smile. "Zhao Chuan. Who is this?" Zachary was stunned for a moment and quickly replied, "My girlfriend." As soon as I heard this, before I could refute, Mike looked directly at me with a little flattery. "Are you General Manager Gu's sister?" Zachary directly shook his head and answered for me. He said, "She does have a brother. But he's just an ignorant bumpkin. How can he be compared with our General Manager Gu?" Mike's face became more serious when he heard this. Immediately, he said seriously, "Zachary, since you have a girlfriend, then how did you get involved with General Manager Gu's sister?" As soon as he heard this, Zachary was confused. I naturally knew the reason, but I didn't plan to say it out at this moment. I just quietly watched Mike explain. "You've been working under me since you entered the company. So as a senior, also your master in a sense. I'll give you a couple of tips. The reason you got promoted this time is not because of your excellent performance, but because of the news from above. It is said that General Manager Gu's sister is interested in you. Although I don't know the details. It should be that they want to match you two up. So they specially gave you a promotion and a salary increase. But if you already have a girlfriend, then..." He didn't finish the sentence. But Zachary could naturally understand it. He, who had been trying to pester me just now wished he could be as far away from me as possible. He quickly apologized with a smile and explained, "Actually, I didn't finish just now. She was my girlfriend before, but we broke up some time ago. So that's how it is." Mike nodded. I looked at Zachary. Obviously, he had already made a choice at this moment. So I didn't mind giving him a push. "Indeed. We broke up. But he..." "Promise," Zachary shouted at me directly, and then dragged my arm to a nearby coffee shop and said in a hoarse voice, "Didn't you want to break up with me? Now I'm letting you have your way. What else do you want?" I smiled. "Wasn't it you who was pestering me? Weren't you the one who insisted on getting back together with me no matter what?" "One was me, who wanted to take advantage of someone but failed, and might even end up with nothing." Zachary had already made his choice the moment Mike said those words. In the past, he was the one pestering me. Now he was more afraid than I was that this relationship couldn't end quickly. Otherwise, if he angered the boss's sister, he would end up with nothing again. Zachary took a deep breath and said, "What on earth do you have to do to keep your mouth shut? I'm not an unreasonable person either. In the past, I was with you just for the sake of happiness. So I won't bring up old scores. But last time you climbed into my yard and smashed my window. That window is very expensive. Please pay for it first. Once the money is paid and the goods are received, we go our separate ways. How about that?" He was stunned for a moment, then took out his mobile phone and was about to transfer money to me directly. "Tell me, how much is that piece of glass? It's not too expensive. Just tens of thousands." The moment I finished speaking, his transfer action paused, and he immediately looked up at me. "How much? What did you say? Tens of thousands? Promise. Why don't you just rob people? So greedy." I didn't deliberately overcharge. The glass was indeed not that expensive. What was expensive was the mental loss that night, and all kinds of labor costs for changing the glass overnight. It's just tens of thousands of yuan. The future son-in-law of a top 100 company in the world. Can't you afford it? As soon as he heard my words, he gritted his teeth and transferred the money to me immediately. "Don't forget to write the purpose in the remarks. I will also issue an invoice to you then. Let's just be businesslike." He was angered into laughter. "Promise. You're really something." 7. My brother was on a business trip abroad for 3 days. When he came back, he brought me a lot of gifts. He also solemnly handed one of the gifts to me. "This gift is for your boyfriend. As your brother, I hope you are happy." I looked at the thing in my hand. Just a quick glance and I knew it was very valuable. It was a pity that Zachary didn't deserve it at all. So I told my brother everything that had happened these days. I watched the smile on his face disappear little by little, then gradually turn into anger. Finally, he took out his mobile phone and was about to make a call. "If it weren't for your sake, with Zachary's work level and the occasional mistakes he makes, I would have had him fired long ago. Now he still dares to bully you. I'll immediately." "Wait." I stopped my brother. My brother was a bit confused. I smiled and pointed to the gift in my hand. "We won't give such an expensive gift. However, there's no need to rush to make him leave the job either. Because 3 minutes ago, a mutual friend sent me a message saying that Zachary was spreading rumors outside, saying that I hooked up with a rich patron for my family and then dumped him, and that he was so heartbroken that unexpectedly his career took off. In short, he was spreading all kinds of rumors outside, which was really disgusting." Zachary also sent me a message with a new mobile phone number and attached a photo. He was showing off his rising status in the company and making me regret leaving him. I had always adhered to the principle of not attacking others unless they attacked me first. Originally, if we broke up and never saw each other again in the future, everyone would be happy. But since he was spreading dirty rumors about me outside, of course I wouldn't let him off easily. I really wanted to see how exactly he could make me regret it. I chose to do nothing for the time being. The next day, I also went to the company. My brother said that when he was on a business trip abroad, he participated in an auction and bought a very expensive necklace. It was just that because of the complicated procedures, it could only be delivered later. A necklace was sent directly to the company. So I told him that I would go and pick it up myself. And quite a few people in the company knew about this matter. However, everyone only knew that this necklace was bought by President Gu for his own sister. As for who his sister was, no one knew at present. Undoubtedly, I met Zachary again in the company. As soon as he saw me, he sneered. "What? Regretted it? Now you want to please me? But I tell you, it's too late." I gave him a blank look. Looking at his complacent look, I deliberately poured cold water on him. "Are you very happy to call yourself the son-in-law in this company? But I'm very curious. Since you got promoted until now. Have you seen the legendary Miss Gu? As soon as he heard my words, Zachary's face froze slightly. Even the group of employees watching the fun behind him couldn't help but start talking. Yes. It is said that President Gu's sister has taken a liking to him. But up to now we still don't know who President Gu's sister is. Are all these rumors false? I don't think so. Otherwise, why could Zachary get promoted? I guess. Most likely she is an employee in our company. But she is using a false name, and wants to hide in the dark and secretly observe us. Zachary cleared his throat and deliberately raised his head and said, "Of course I know who President Gu's sister is. Don't sow discord here. You gave up on me to be with a rich man. It's your loss. But in the future, I have a great future. And I hope you don't come near me either." What the hell? A great future? Sorry. It's a bit funny. I even laughed out loud. Okay. Then I'll wait, and see what kind of great future you will have. After saying that, I turned around and walked inside. This time, my brother was in the company and had made arrangements in advance, so I could go directly to his office to find him. However, when Zachary saw me walking towards the president's office, he seemed a bit puzzled and kept following me. "What are you coming to see President Gu for?" I ignored him and kept walking. When I was about to push open the door of the president's office, Gia opened the door from the inside. Originally, her eyes were lonely. But the moment she saw me, she immediately became extremely aggressive. "What are you doing here?" Gia started with an interrogation. "It has nothing to do with you. Who do you think you are?" For this Gia, who showed strong hostility towards me the first time we met. Of course I didn't like her in my heart either. So I didn't give her a good look either. Gia still held on firmly. She didn't notice Zachary hiding around the corner. So she deliberately flicked her hair, and then said to me mysteriously, "My surname is also Gu. Who do you think I am?" She only said this one sentence and then turned around and left on her high-heeled shoes. KSK. I didn't know who she was. A clown. That's who. Brother. Where did you recruit this employee? Why is she so strange? After entering the office, I closed the door casually. The sound insulation here is very good, so there is no need to worry about someone eavesdropping outside. I sat on the sofa beside me. My brother put down the documents in his hand and also sat down beside me. He handed me the box in his hand. At the beginning of the establishment of this company, Gia's sister helped me a great deal. Later, I don't know what happened. Her sister suddenly left her job. Before leaving, she hoped that I could do her this favor. So Gia came here. For the sake of her sister, I let her work here and took care of her to some extent. When he said this, my brother paused for a while, and his expression seemed a bit hard to describe. I thought sisters in a family were always similar. I didn't expect that her sister, such a capable person, would have such a stupid sister. It's okay if her ability is not outstanding. I just gave her a couple of extra reminders for the sake of her sister. But she thought that I liked her and kept pestering me. There is a one-way glass in the office, from which you can see the situation in the outside corridor. So when I looked up, I happened to see Zachary and Gia standing together. Zachary was saying something, but he made Gia blush. The two of them talked for a while at the corner and then left slowly. Thinking of Zachary who had been eavesdropping nearby before, I had a guess in my mind. So I patted my brother's hand. "Don't worry. It shouldn't be long before Shunjie stops pestering you." My brother was a bit confused. But I didn't say much. Just told him to wait. I liked Zachary, mostly because of his face at first. He was really very handsome. He was best at winning a young girl's heart. And that afternoon, we met in the mall. Zachary and Gia were in a luxury store. Zachary's eyes were full of tenderness. No matter what clothes Gia picked, he said they looked good. Gia saw me from a distance and stood at the door, laughing. "The brands here are very expensive. Not everyone is qualified to buy here." Obviously, Gia still regarded me as a gold digger. Zachary also hurried over and carefully protected Gia as if she were his sweetheart. Gia, don't be angry with unworthy people. I've said that I want to make you happy today. So no matter what clothes you like, I'll buy them for you. Okay? With such a face and such a gentle tone. A young girl who has little experience in the world can easily fall for it. And Gia had just been frustrated in her feelings with my brother. Then she immediately met Zachary, who was showing concern for her, looking at the little affection in her eyes. I could vaguely guess something, so I smiled and said, "So generous?" Zachary heard the sarcasm in my words. Or perhaps to save face in front of Gia. He immediately waved his hand grandly and directly bought all the clothes that Gia had just liked. Gia, as long as you like it, I'll buy it for you." Hearing this, a little gratitude flashed in Gia's eyes. And even tears were welling up in her eyes. "Xiao Chu on. You are so kind to me." Zachary's smile grew wider, and he directly took out his card from his pocket. Then, he didn't have enough money. Then, he stretched out his hand to me. "Promise, I can give you a chance. You should be well aware of how my status will change in the future. If you help me at this time, I will also help you when you are in trouble in the future. How about it?" I smiled and replied, "No way. A Phoenix man." I left the mall and didn't care about the curses behind me. And Zachary also regarded Gia as my brother's sister. They had the same surname after all. Plus what she said to me outside the office that day. It was easy to be preconceived. So he just thought that Gia wanted to test him. So he had been trying his best to be nice to her these days. My brother helped me keep an eye on the company's situation. And he was almost overjoyed. Gia hasn't pestered me again these days. Instead, she has been with your embarrassing ex-boyfriend every day. The two of them go in and out together and have lunch together. Looking at their very intimate behavior, it seems that they have already secretly got together. I nodded. That's good. A pair of strange people get together. Which also saves them from harming others. My brother smiled and then said, "The company's annual party will be in a few days. As my sister, do you want to attend?" If I attended, my identity would be exposed. Just as I was hesitating, a brand new number sent a message to my mobile phone. "Promise. Do you think you are still some kind of phoenix? Gia is already pregnant with my child. We have just got the marriage certificate. Although she still wants to keep testing me and hasn't told me her real identity. My love for her can be seen by heaven and earth. As for you, you have a bad temper and rely on your family's little money. With high aspirations but low abilities. I wish you a lonely old age. Well, no need to hesitate." I nodded at my brother. "Yes. I'll attend." I released the news in advance. So everyone in my brother's company knew that Mr. Goose's sister would be present tonight. I still knew something about Zachary's character. He has been with me for 5 years. Always presenting an extremely perfect image. Before my brother came back, he had never shown the slightest intention of coveting my family's property. He is a very patient, Phoenix man, a man from a poor family, who marries into a wealthy family. So, in front of Gia, in order to maintain his good image, he surely wouldn't test the waters in advance. Thus, the information gap between the two of them actually promoted their relationship to develop further. Before the annual meeting started, I had already entered the venue. Zachary was surrounded by a group of people, like the moon surrounded by stars. He held Gia in his arms. With an extremely gentle smile, he said loudly to everyone, "I know the recent rumors in the company. But I can tell you clearly that the one I've always loved in my heart is only Gia. I don't want to be the son-in-law of the company either. I just want to love my beloved girl wholeheartedly. So don't make these kinds of jokes in the future." Listening to his words, Gia, who was held in his arms, also had an increasingly happy smile on her face. So when the two of them saw me, they both said simultaneously, "Why are you here? Why are you here?" I looked at them, and then said to Zachary, You don't want to be the son-in-law of this company. It seems that you are quite infatuated. Gia looked at me with a little vigilance. She directly stuck out her not yet showing pregnancy belly and showed off in front of me. Promise. Xiao Chuan has already told me that you are a woman who forgets honor at the sight of profits. No matter how much you regret it now. It's too late. I've already got the marriage certificate with Xiao Chuan, and I'm pregnant with his child. If you dare to destroy our marriage, I will post your affairs on the internet. Let netizens cyberbully you. And let everyone know that you are a shameless mistress. Mistress? It just made me laugh. These two strange people really should be locked together so as not to harm others if they enter the market. So I don't plan to say much more. The annual meeting officially began. My brother, wearing a suit, stood on the stage. After a brief speech as a leader, he then turned his eyes to me. But Gia just happened to be standing beside me as well. Zachary looked proud and said to me in a low voice, "Do you think it's so great to have a little stinking money at home? Miss Gu is the real rich and beautiful girl. You can't even compare to one of her toes." While speaking, he tightened Gia's hand once again. I ignored them, and just looked at my brother on the stage. Listening to him say, "Today, I'm here to introduce my sister. Promise to everyone." The moment his words fell, the smile on Zachary's face froze on the spot. He looked at me in disbelief. You are Mr. Gu's sister?" Gia also seemed a little surprised. But now that she had fallen in love with Zachary, she wholeheartedly protected him in front of me and couldn't help but say one more sentence. "Even if you are not a gold digger, you should also know that you can't destroy other people's families. Otherwise I won't let you off." As soon as she finished speaking, Zachary directly pushed her. Gia didn't stand firmly. Fortunately, someone beside her gave her a hand. So there was no major problem. Zachary still seemed a little incredulous and repeatedly asked me, "Promise? Are you really Mr. Gu's sister?" I nodded. "Yes. Is there a problem?" At this time, my brother also walked down from the stage and stood with me. Looking at Zachary in front of him, his eyes were extremely unhappy. Seeing this, Zachary looked as if he was about to cry. He then turned to look at Gia. As if still not reconciled, he directly asked my brother, No, Gia's surname is Gu. She should be your sister. How could Promise be your sister?" "No, it's not like this. It definitely isn't like this." Gia, who was confused, finally reacted at this time. With 2 lines of clear tears flowing down her face, she reached out and continuously beat Zachary. "So all the kindness you showed me these days and you're saying that you would love me all your life were all because you mistook me for Mr. Gu's sister?" Zachary seemed to be on the verge of collapse. He asked Gia, "You are not Mr. Gu's sister? Then who are you? Who are you?" Gia could no longer answer his question, because she was too excited. Her lower abdomen began to ache dully, and her face also became pale. Someone in the venue urgently dialed 120. But Gia was still tightly grasping Zachary's arm. "Xiao Chuan, no matter what, we have already got the marriage certificate. And I still have your child in my belly. Can't we just live a good life?" Well, she can still forgive at this point. She is really a love brain. Zachary stared at her with blood-red eyes and glared at her viciously. "If you are not Mr. Gu's sister, why should I still be with you? You are so picky and difficult to serve. Do you think you are really a princess?" These words were a bit too much. But then again, this is also their family matter. After all, they have got the marriage certificate. And it's not appropriate for outsiders to interfere. Today can be regarded as just watching a lively scene. After my brother and I exchanged a glance, he directly announced that Zachary would be fired. His professional ability is mediocre. If it hadn't been for my relationship at the beginning, he couldn't have been promoted and got a raise in such a short time. Later, he always wanted to rely on Gia to be a superior in the company and became more negligent of his work. There were several problems, which could be regarded as serious mistakes. so he could be directly fired. Zachary. The saying "don't bully the poor young man" really doesn't suit you. A Phoenix man, who wants to take advantage of the woman's family property, will eventually pay the corresponding price. 11 later. Zachary tried to pester me again. But Mom, Dad and my brother already knew about this matter. So they were on guard early in the morning. Zachary couldn't get into the community. And if he dared to stop me near my studio, I would call the police directly. After calling the police 2 or 3 times in a row, Zachary didn't dare to come anymore. Besides, Gia was discharged from the hospital. The baby in her womb was saved. I once met her. She stroked her slightly bulging belly and looked at me warily. "Zhao Chuan is just bewitched by you for the moment. When I give birth to a son, he will know that in this world, only I treat him the best." I forgot to mention that later I had someone investigate Gia. Gia's parents and the Gu family value sons more than daughters. After giving birth to 2 daughters in a row, they finally gave birth to Yao Ziyu. And Gia's sister didn't want to be exploited anymore, so she chose to develop abroad. She originally wanted Gia to go with her, but instead Gia scolded her severely. As elder sisters, it is only natural for us to help our younger brothers in our natal family. You actually ran abroad to avoid your responsibilities. I'm so ashamed to have a sister like you. After that, Gia's sister was heartbroken and left alone. She never contacted her family again. And because of this incident, Gia and Zachary were both fired. Gia is a complete love brain. Even though things have come to this point, she still firmly believes that Zachary will live a good life with her in the future. Besides being a love brain, she is also a brother-helping demon. Yao Ziyu has a girlfriend, and recently they are discussing the matter of getting married and asking Gia for money. Gia held the marriage certificate with Zachary in her hand, and the Gu family members directly came to the door, saying that they wanted to get back the betrothal money. They made a fuss again and again. Mother Qin was no match for Mother Gu at all, and finally she was so angry that she was hospitalized. Zachary wanted to divorce Gia, but Gia didn't want to. The situation became more and more intense. Zachary directly filed for divorce, but unexpectedly Gia directly presented evidence that she had mental problems. So the divorce couldn't be carried out. They will have to keep with each other for the rest of their lives. One is a Phoenix man trying to take advantage of a family without a male heir, and the other is a sister who is a brother-helping demon and sucks blood. When such people get together, they will never have peace in their lives.